Alrighty, so we're going to be using a paper plate to construct a unit circle. And we're going to start by basically folding the paper plate in half. And it's best to use the kind of plates that don't have a film on them, because if you're going to be drawing on them with pen or marker, you don't want it to smear. So we're going to fold it in half once, and then fold it in half again, and actually it can just be folded into quarters if that's easier. And give it a nice crease, and then unfold it. And then I would recommend either using a marker or colored pencils, and then use a ruler to help draw your axes. So it might help to actually fold it a little bit so you know exactly where they're supposed to be. And so when you're talking to students, you want to make sure that they recognize, obviously, one of these is going to be the x-axis, one is going to be the y-axis. And don't expect it to be perfect, because as they're folding, I think actually I'm looking at this and I can see that it doesn't look like it's a perfect 90-degree angle, but what can you do? So at this point, what you'll want to do is talk about what the students remember from geometry in terms of the number of degrees that are in a circle, and also in terms of the circumference. If you want to start talking in radians, you can also mark the radian degrees of the circle as well. You also want to talk to students about, for example, the x-axis is going to be the initial side of every angle that we construct on a unit circle, and that when we're measuring degrees of an angle, the terminal side of the angle is always going to be determined by going counterclockwise on the circle. So in terms of our initial side, we know that this would be a 0-degree angle at this point. And since we've pretty much just taken the circle and split it into quarters, students should know that there are 360 degrees in a circle, and so half of that circle is going to be 180 degrees. And if I were to split 360 into quarters, that means that this is going to be a 90-degree angle, and this is going to be 270 degrees. If you want, you can also, at the same time, talk about the radian measures the same way, or you can do it as a separate lesson when you're talking about translating the degrees into radians and back and forth in that conversions. If you want to do the radians as you go, then you just remind students that the circumference of a circle is just 2 pi r, and since we're dealing with a unit circle, the radius of our unit circle is just 1. And so that means that the circumference of our unit circle is going to be 2 pi. And if I take 2 pi and I cut it in half, that means that 180 degrees is going to correspond to pi. And then if I split pi in half, that means that this degree measure is also going to correspond to pi over 2. And my 270 degree mark is going to correspond to 3 pi over 2. And then my 0 degrees is also going to be 0 pi. But if I'm going all the way around the circle, it'll also be 2 pi if I am looking at that complete circle. So that gives you your basic. And students should, if you want to also add the coordinates of these points, you can. Or you can save them to fill out on the actual unit circle paper that we're going to be giving to students. They're going to get a blank one of these, and they can kind of fill it out as they go. So at this point, the next thing we'd want to do is to come up with all of our 45-degree angles. So basically, take your paper plate and fold it in quarters again, and then fold those quarters in half.
Miss McNeely?
Yes?
You have a phone call.
Okay.